Hey there, Groovesters, Groove Stars, Ridgely here with another Lessons from the CEO. Super excited to have with me the founder of Attract to Scale, my buddy, Jared Ernie. Jared, how you doing, brother?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited. You are a marketing wizard that helps a lot of local business owners as a coach, as a consultant, as a mentor, a lot of people at a very high level. Obviously, you had to start somewhere way before this to be able to gain the expertise to do that. So take us back. Were you always an entrepreneur? Did you morph into it? What was the story?
Oh, that's taking me back almost 2 decades. And
Perfect.
yes, I've always had this drive inside of me to create something big, to really strive to live life on my own terms. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that where, they want to have time freedom and financial freedom, but they also want to leverage their God-given skills and talents to impact the world in really positive ways. And I've always had that, but I never really knew what that was going to unfold like for me. And I remember originally when I was just married, I had a corporate job, absolutely drained the life out of me. And one day I just couldn't take it anymore. I just quit. That day quit, walked out. And I had seen this episode on Discovery Channel where this guy was diving for golf balls and pulling them out of ponds and like selling them. And I was like, I'm going to do that. So I told my wife, I'm
Are
going to
you
dive for golf
serious?
balls.
Get out of
Yeah,
here. You
I'm
were
going to
saying
dive
you
for
were gonna die
golf
for
balls.
golf
And
balls.
she was like, what? I'm like, who did I marry? So, so, but this is how, when I have an idea or I have a path and I'm going to do it, like, this is how committed I am. I went and bought a wetsuit. I went and bought like the gear. I started doing research, trying to figure out what that looked like here. And I found there was another company that had all these contracts with these golf communities. And so I figured out who it was. I called him up and he was a doctor who was doing this as like a side business. And I said, hey, can I just take you to lunch? So we sat down for lunch. I said, look, I'm going to be doing this, but I'm curious, like, would you want to hire me or compete? And he was like, you're hired. So I ended up for 3 years diving for golf balls. And though it wasn't really my own business, I gained some experience in some different ways, but I took that drive with me into every other venture that I did. But I've had a lot of businesses in the past that I think where started learning the real skill sets that I use today to help other local businesses came from 8 years in building a indoor digital billboard network. It's in the space of marketing. But what I did was I bought a mini PC from eBay and a TV from Target and put it in a barbecue restaurant and sold my first ad space on there for $60 a month. And that grew into a network of over 200 locations of gyms and restaurants that hosted these displays. And they were an alternative to outdoor billboards for the local business community. I had a lot of experience working with all kinds of different local businesses from this. And I also had a lot of experience or gained a lot of experience in how do I market my own local business this way. And that's what really kind of led me down the path of mastering this. I spent 8 years figuring out the frameworks that I use today to help other local businesses. But it was those frameworks that propelled that business to a point where we could sell it. And now what I use with other local businesses today to help them double and even triple their revenue in a short period of time.
No, okay. That's just beyond fascinating. Okay. So what was it like to dive for golf balls? I mean, I'm just totally flabbergasted by that. And there's a real business here.
It's so interesting. And honestly, there's probably a lot of parallels you can take from this into business like yourself. But one of the things, just getting used to it is the weirdest thing because here in Georgia, the water is not clear. You get dive into it, the minute you start disturbing the silt, it like is black. So one of the things you have to get really comfortable with is being in the dark underwater and being okay with that. And you don't know what turtles or snakes or like creatures are in the water. But here's what we do. I took like this little like a PVC pipe and a belt, and I like made this contraption with a laundry net that I hooked on my waist. And I'd go underwater and I'd like fill for the golf balls in the silt, and I'd just pop them into this little pipe and they would go right down into the bag, and I'd fill about 600 of them at a time, come out, dump them in 2 buckets and carry on and keep doing that. We had one day where we actually pulled out over 13,000 golf balls in one day. It was overflowing in my truck. I had to wrap it with a tarp and tie it up. But
wow. And now, okay, just help me with the economics here. This is fascinating to me. So,
yeah.
How much money do people pay for these golf balls?
Well, so the benefit of me having gone to that doctor who had this already kind of established was I didn't have to figure out some of this stuff. But he already had a contract with a company in Houston, I believe, that he would ship these balls to. So we just bring them to the warehouse. He'd get them packaged up and shipped. And I don't know exactly how much he was paid per ball, but this was going to a company where they would refurbish the balls and sell them to putt-putt courses, or that's what we see in the South, mini golf courses, for those who don't know what that is. Or some of the nice ones they would resell, to golfers. But if I remember the math, if we did let's say 13,000 golf balls, I'd make 9 cents a ball. So that was almost $1,200.
Yeah. For one day's work. That's really pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's just so fascinating. Now, but hold on. So you're underwater in the dark, in the mud, in the silt. Tell me how that turned into digital billboards inside business. That's fantastic.
I wish I knew exactly, but right. It's kind of, I don't know, but what I can tell you is that I had this drive inside of me to do something that I could control. And having a corporate job was just not that for me. After that kind of period of life, the 3 years I did that, I gained some great experience from it, but I went back to a corporate job. It was kind of just what I had to do. And I spent 6 years and it sucked the life out of me again. And I had to be reminded that this is not the path for me. But all during that time, I started building these side businesses to hopefully build something into something more. And I could leave that corporate job. And my wife is a school teacher. So one of the things she found was a problem for her is getting enough physical activity for the kids in her classroom. Getting them moving inside the classroom. It was really important to her, but their school had some CDs with some music videos that they kind of moved to. And it was shared with 10 other teachers, and it's really impractical for it to be used the way it should have been. So I started creating videos and putting them on a site that she could just access anytime she needed during the day. And through that process, we ended up more teachers were like, hey, we want this. We want this too. Can we use it in more schools? And so I ended up actually getting a contract with a couple school districts in our area. And I had 80 schools using this as a platform for all of their teachers to use these videos. Well, that kind of might be more of a segue into what I ended up doing with digital ads on these screens, because of creating these videos and hosting and all this stuff led me to more towards that path. But yeah, I've done a lot of different things.
I was going to say, man, that was just way too classic for me, because I knew there had to be some kind of way that transition was made, having myself started 45 companies. And it's okay, I got to hear this story. This has got to be good for sure. So along your journey, talk to us a little bit about what do you think are the let's say two or three top characteristics of a successful entrepreneur?
So yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really thought enough about this. So just off the cuff, I might have a better answer an hour from now. But I would say probably the number one thing that I've learned is that it starts with the real desire to create impact and transformation. I think early on when I was starting a business, I was more focused on what's a cool way I can make money, and not on how can I really impact someone else's life in a positive way with my skills and talents. And so I think that's where one big transformation happened to me as I went through this. I started developing skills and talents that I knew I could greatly impact someone's life. And I think you're rewarded based on the amount of impact you can create in other people's lives. So I would say that being definitely one. It's not about making money. It's about creating impact, and that impact you can create will then reward you back financially. If that makes sense.
Yep.
Number two, I would say, make it something you love, right? It's got to be something you love. Like there's got to be a deeper why behind what you're doing, not just a means to an end, but like a real mission behind it. Like I could tell you, if I didn't need to make a living doing what I'm doing, I'd probably still be doing it. Right? Because it's something I just care so much about. And that's going to take you through the hard times, right? Every entrepreneur, I think it's really interesting because a lot of the businesses I work with, they start a business because they want to be more control of their own time freedom, financial freedom. They want to live life on their terms. But what happens is usually the opposite. They start this business and now they end up spending way more time than they ever thought they would on building the business, way more hours away from home or way more hours at working, sleepless nights, trying to build this thing. And then rarely do they ever pay themselves what they're worth, if that at all, for quite some time. And so if you can connect to a deep why and it's something you're passionate about because you care more about it, there's something really pulling you in this way, it's going to get you through that period that most entrepreneurs go through before they become successful and have that time freedom and financial freedom that they really started the business for.
Now, let me ask you a question, because I heard a very interesting thing about, follow your passion, follow what you love, etc. And a big researcher said, a big, medical doctor, big research dude, big institute said, it doesn't quite work that way. He said, yes, you follow your passion, but what usually happens is that someone gets good at something. And in the process of getting good at that thing, they then fall more in love with that thing and then are able to really follow their passion. But it doesn't start from, I'm sitting under a tree and I go, I'm just really passionate about insert the thing. What do you think of that?
I absolutely agree with that. And I think that probably speaks to my journey too, because when I started my businesses, I didn't know that I would love digital marketing. I didn't know that I would end up here, but it was the journey that I went on that really started getting me better at what I was doing. And I absolutely developed a higher level love for it, which then later connected to my deeper why in what I'm doing, is really become a mission for me. So I absolutely agree with that. And I think what I tend to see is a lot of people want to shortcut their path to success, and they don't give themselves the room to have that journey to really guide them to that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, say more about that.
Well, I had this conversation with a guy not too long ago, and he was like, "Hey, do you teach digital marketers to be able to do what you do for local business owners?" And I said, "Well, yeah, you could definitely use the principles and run an agency around that for sure. But why do you want to do this?" And he said, "Well, because I'm a truck driver and I just think it's a good way to make money. And so I think if I can learn something, I can sell that service." And I said, "Well, do you have any life experience marketing?" He said, "No." "Have you ever had success doing any of these things?" "No." So, well, I think you should probably allow yourself to go through some of this process first, do it well for yourself first, learn from those experiences, and then become to a place where you can sell that. You're kind of jumping ahead of and you're not going to have the success that you really want if you're trying to shortcut your path there. So I think a lot of people want to shortcut too quickly and not really go through what it takes to get really good at something.
And to that end, let's talk about that for a second, because it's one of my favorite things to discuss. Tell us about some colossal setback or error that you had to work through and what you learned from that.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, how many do you want?
Well, I know that, man. Us entrepreneurs, we're kind of used to that. I always love to say we have bad memories and underdeveloped senses of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So true. So true. So let me take you into my indoor digital billboard company. We were trying to scale this, and I actually built this by cold calling. I started by just cold calling, and I was just good at it. So I built the company on that back. But we got to a place where, in order to scale, I can't scale myself. Like I have to get out of sales to continue to grow this. The biggest challenge that we had though was trying to get other people to do it like I did. So we started with entry-level sales reps thinking I could train them through my system, and I could never get it. Too much churn. They just didn't get it. So we thought, well, maybe we need more seasoned sales professionals from the billboard industry because they know it. And we got them on board. Didn't work. So we decided, well, maybe we need to figure this out with some consulting. We spent $25,000 on a consulting company, come in and fix our problem. Didn't work. We decided maybe we need to sell this digitally. So we invested so much money in a website, new website that looked, quite honestly, it looked more like a shoe store where you could see all the locations, add to cart and check out. Never made a sale through the darn website. And all of this put me in a path of eventually figuring out what does work, because I was one by one figuring out what doesn't work. And I never stopped. And this put me on a journey to figure out how, first of all, sales funnels, offer strategy, how this all works together. And I started realizing one interesting statistic that I started figuring out was we already have traffic. I didn't know this. Usually people come, or usually in that position, people go, I need more traffic to make more sales. But guess what? We had traffic. We just didn't know that it wasn't a traffic problem. It was a conversion problem. So I started realizing, oh, okay, this is interesting. And that's what dove me into some sales funnel strategies. When I started making the adjustments to that, I went from having to cold call businesses to having 15 to 20 leads in the next 3 days of people raising their hands saying, I'm interested. I just never had a good system for that before. And all of a sudden I realized, hey, maybe all these salespeople I'm trying to train to cold call will do a lot better if I just give them leads who already said I'm interested. Mm-hmm. And then surprisingly, day 3 happened and we had our first transaction through the website. First time I never had to pick up the phone at all to close a deal. And that changed everything for us. But it was a real journey to figure all of that out.
Yeah. And the lesson from that obviously is that you failed your way forward multiple times, iterating at each level. Okay, now what? Now what? Now what? Okay, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. But I know I got a good product. I'm going to keep on rolling no matter what. Yeah, top characteristic of the entrepreneur is that dogged perseverance, unwillingness to give up.
Yeah, I think too many people give up right before they figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to us a little bit about mentorship. How's that impacted you in your journey, finding mentors or seeking mentors? What's that look like for you?
That's a lesson I wish I had learned so much sooner in life, because the entrepreneur spirit and that will to never give up gives us this innate kind of belief in ourselves that, man, I can be scrappy. I can figure this out on my own with enough time. I'll get this. I don't need to make the big investment to this coaching program or that thing, because you know what? I'll figure it out. I know I will. But at what cost? Because it took me 8 years to get that business to where I wanted it to be, when it could have taken so much less time. And what I didn't realize at that moment, or that during that period, is that the cost of not knowing was far greater. Like if you want to make $1 million a year in your business, and right now you're at 200,000, the cost of not knowing how to make $1 million is actually $800,000. So it is far better to just make the investment up front and get resourceful and figure that out, because that time is greatly compressed. So today I wholeheartedly believe in finding the right person to coach you through something you're trying to achieve, who has been there before, to compress that learning curve. I don't have all the time in the world. I was younger and I didn't realize that, but today I don't have time. I'm going to find the right people to help me now.
Yeah, it's so funny you'd say that. And I think that as I've matured and gone through, the 45 companies that I've started, I lovingly say 2 or 3 were successful, 4 or 5 were moderately successful, and the rest were highly educational. And if I had asked for the education from somebody, I probably wouldn't have done them, or I would have done them very differently and saved myself an unbelievable amount of heartache. And I mean, the only reason this hair is not white is because I color it. Okay, just say it. So you don't have to worry about that, but I got to worry about it somehow because I can't deal with a white head. So, in parallel with that, what value do you place on personal and ongoing professional development?
Oh, it's huge. The biggest investments I've ever made have been in personal development. And the biggest ROIs I've ever had has come from investing in myself. And it's crazy to people when I tell them, like, I've spent over $60,000 in the past couple of years on personal development. They're like, what? Why would you do that? Well, you know what? It's been my best ROI, period.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit more. What have you seen from that to judge that from yourself personally? How do you quantify, oh, wow, that 60K was the best thing I ever did?
Well, here's one way to look at it in a kind of exciting way. When when I started into this coaching space, I immediately found the right coach that I knew was for the right reasons at the right time for what I needed. And in working with them, I made my investment back in 2 weeks. I tripled my business in 6 weeks, and I was on a trajectory to hit $1 million in business so much faster than anything else I had ever done in the past. And so that was easy to go back and go, definitely worth it. And I continue to look at that with everything that I'm doing is like, what does my business need right now? And who is the best out there to help me? And so I immediately like seek that kind of help and start implementing. The other thing that I think is so important is that you need to show up and like commit to the process. It's not just learning it. You've got to implement it diligently in order for you to win at that. And it's not, usually you might try like I see so many people taking a strategy and implementing and it didn't work. Well, it's not because that process or that framework doesn't work. It's just, you didn't do it well enough. So do it again and again and again until you do it well.
Yeah, for sure. I see that all the time. So give us your take on AI and what impact is AI having in business, especially in digital marketing.
Well, man, AI is changing everything too. And I don't know how you feel about SEO, but I'll just give my 2 cents on it for my purposes and my clients is that SEO is in many ways dead to what it used to be traditional SEO, because things like AI have just made it so easy to produce so much content out there that it's getting harder and harder to compete in that space. And so we're seeing that there's great opportunities in different ways to market yourself a little bit differently with Google and things like that we're seeing with our clients. But the cool thing is like AI plays in so many different ways. It's not just SEO. Like everyone looks at it first for like SEO purposes, but man, we use AI to help our clients write out their content for their Google profile posts. Or, this is really cool. My 12-year-old son used AI to generate 5 different short form video scripts for his Elf on the Shelf product he calls the Elf Survival Kit for parents. And
Nice.
It's so fun to see that a 12-year-old doing that. Like, I wish I had learned at such much earlier ages. And we're just, if we can set up people to understand how to use this more effectively, especially like, the kids today, man, they're going to be set up for some great success as the opportunities just keep blossoming from things like AI.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So now I love asking this question. You've been an entrepreneur for a long time now. And obviously that comes with a certain amount of wisdom and knowledge based oftentimes on getting your butt kicked, right? and taking a few lumps here and there, finding that snake under the water in the lake, whatever it is. If you could hit a button and go back in a time warp 20 years and speak to the younger Jared of that time with the knowledge and wisdom that you have of today, what would you like to say to that young Jared? And by the way, this answer is not allowed. This is the answer that's not allowed. Oh man, my whole journey has been amazing. So I wouldn't change any of it for the world. No, we want to know, what would you say to Jared from 20 years ago with what you know today?
Yeah, what a good question. So there's probably, the thing is like, originally, I'm so glad for everything that I've gone through, but
yeah, that's not a good enough answer. Just let you know.
But what I would tell that younger Jared is just invest in the right coach sooner, because that was I was just too scrappy to do that earlier on. I believed that I would figure it out on my own. And though I'm grateful for the trials that I've gone through and the perseverance I learned to have, and eventually figuring things out that I had to learn the hard way, the whole reason for getting a mentor is to bypass a lot of that and get success faster. And I just didn't realize that. I didn't realize the cost of not getting the right coach for the right reasons, the right time. I didn't understand what that was really costing me. And so if I could do things over again, it would be going back to that younger version of myself 2 decades ago and saying, look, just figure it out, get resourceful, do whatever you have to do, because your life will immediately be so much more better than taking 2 decades to figure this out before you find that kind of success.
Yeah, for sure. I hear that one big time, man. I wish I could have said the same thing to the Ridgely 20 years ago. Dude, get a coach, man. Find somebody to help you out. All right, hook us up here. 3 books or resources that you would recommend for the entrepreneur on their journey, no matter where they are, whether they're a beginning entrepreneur, older entrepreneur, in terms of time that they put into the entrepreneurial journey, and why?
Yeah. So I got some right here. Okay. So number 1, Magnetic Marketing by Dan Kennedy. Fantastic book here. This is going to break down how to position yourself in a way that competes with value instead of price, and really attract people to you instead of you chasing them. There's so much in here, like just phenomenal gold. Love it. The second one is going to be Atomic Habits. How to deconstruct your goals into creating the systems that propel you to achieving those goals. And then, you know what? I got onto this one. It's not so recent. Like, it's been recent that I've been actually dove into this one. It's not like a book that I found 10 years ago and, like, you know, has shaped how I've gone through my journey. But this is something that I've just loved so much. Atomic Habits, and that's the thing, like, having goals is good, but we have these goals and then we've never really deconstruct the systems that help us achieve those goals. And so that's what I really have taken out of that book. And then the third one, maybe not so much a book, but more of a resource that really has guided me in some unique ways. Like, when I was seeking for the right way to market my business earlier on, I ended up discovering the community for ClickFunnels. And though ClickFunnels is a software company, the thing that I've loved so much about them is that they really focus on the education of good marketing principles and tactics that'll give utility to that software. And so you can have other kinds of software that does what ClickFunnels does, but it's those principles and tactics that really make you use that tool efficiently. And they used to do this.
So it's like a find community for whatever the thing is that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That's actually, yeah. So on top of that, because certain communities will also have live events, go to those live events, find those relationships in there. They're going to be gold for you. And dive into that. You get so much energy, you know, with the pandemic kind of like putting a pause on a lot of live events. I missed that community aspect that I had. And for an entrepreneur, a community of like-minded people is so important. It can be kind of lonely when you're struggling in your entrepreneur journey, and you know, most people don't understand why you're even doing what you're doing and why you're sacrificing what you are to build what you have, and it can kind of pull you down sometimes. So I get so much energy by surrounding myself with people who understand this process and I can lean on, and they will, I can help support them. And that's just so great. So find a community.
Yeah, I think it's super cool, man. I was turned on to this book by one of my clients, Your Brain at Work. And it is super dense, man. It's one of those that you really have to geek out on, because it's okay, well, this part of the brain, your brain at work, this is the prefrontal neocortex, and this is the back thing, and the amygdala is over here, and this thing does this and this to whatever. But man, it's one of the most influential things I've read in 20 years, because it explains why you get tired from multitasking, why certain activities will drain you, and what you can do to avert that, how the brain actually works in given circumstances. Since I've read this, I've altered my daily activities substantially. And I can tell you that I'm happier and more clear, because things that I intuitively felt, they explain from a brain biology perspective. Like, I've always had a thing about multitasking is not good. It's not. You just get distracted and you get whatever. Well, not only is it not good, but according to brain neurobiologists, it drains the hell out of you. You don't understand that you're splitting your focus like that. It is taking so much more juice that while you think you're getting more done, you're actually depleting your batteries big time. So what you hear from a lot of multitaskers is, oh man, I'm just so tired all the time. Well, if you just knew that what you're doing isn't serving you, maybe you wouldn't do it anymore, right? Kind of crazy. It was like the same thing for me about, I know it's totally off topic, but the same similar vein was understanding the benefit of fasting. Like, I never really liked to eat breakfast because I always felt like it slowed me down. Well, then I start reading from the best functional medicine doctors in the world that the single greatest thing you can do for your body to preserve longevity and stay young is to fast. I'm like, problem solved. I don't have to eat breakfast
That
anymore.
makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't need those three squares. You know what I mean? When you hear new information and you're able to take that and transform it in some way, it just gives you such more juice for life. And I feel like you have that same kind of vibe going on.
Ah, thank you. No, that's a great book. You just turned me on to as well. I love being able to dive into stuff like that, for sure.
It just makes you better. So give us a little bit of your vision for the future for Attract to Scale. Where do you want to, where do you see yourself being? What do the next, say, 5 years look like for you? As we're kind of wrapping up here, what are you looking to achieve? So to basically to plant a framework for those who are listening or watching of what's possible.
Well, that's a great question. So for a long time, Attract to Scale has really provided more of a higher ticket coaching experience, helping people build and install this marketing we call it our 7-figure marketing system into their businesses, and then training them on how to scale with it. So they are empowered, because fundamentally, I want to empower these business owners with the ability to be more in control of their marketing. So that's what we've done. But what I've realized for most people that I talk to, joining that kind of coaching program may not be a good fit for one reason or another. And sometimes it's because of the investment behind it. Sometimes it's other reasons, but they're still a good fit to benefit from the impact that these frameworks can have. So I've been working really hard behind the scenes to build a program that's more of a do-it-yourself, follow-along process, so I can impact more people's lives. And we see a lot of people taking into this kind of program, either because that's what just makes the best sense to start from. They get great traction and then decide to ascend into getting more help with our coaching program. And that creates an opportunity for them to be able to benefit from those frameworks. And in other cases, just going into the coaching is more of a better fit for them, just spending. But the reason I'm doing that is because I have found that I want to really impact more people, and I can't in our coaching program alone. So what we're working really hard behind is this Impact Marketing Academy that will allow business owners almost at all financial levels to be able to access these frameworks and apply them to their businesses and see great impact from it. And I don't have a monetary goal necessarily, but I have an impact goal. And that impact goal this year is to have 1,000 members in that new academy that we're launching.
That's fantastic. And, of course, as we have learned over the years, that the bigger the impact, the bigger the income. So it's very interesting how that also goes along. Okay. Final words to the entrepreneurs that are out there from Jared, based on all of your experience. What would you want to say to the people who, no matter where they are in their journey, what final nugget would you leave them with?
Well, you're probably on this journey because at some point you decided you wanted to strive to live life more on your terms and to be more in control of your financial freedom, time freedom, and impact the world around you. What I've discovered today is that starting a business is not the challenge. What the challenge is today is how do you cut through the noise? And if you're in this to create impact for your life and for your business and for the communities you serve, one of the most important thing is to really get good at your marketing. It's the fuel for your business. If you're a roofer, you're no longer in the business of roofing. You're in the business of selling roofing. If you're right, that's the mentality here. And though you are really good at that roofing skill set, you have to be willing to master the marketing side of it too. Otherwise, you will always struggle. So find those. And here's the other tip on that as well. And that is the number one rule to marketing is abandon all strategies everyone else is doing that doesn't work. Don't model the other companies out there. Be smart about how you take to your marketing and dissect it in ways that like we learned in Atomic Habits, figure out what that goal is for you and work backwards to create the systems that will propel you to that goal. That's how we approach marketing.
Fantastic, man. Really, really appreciate it. Some great stuff all the way from golf balls to digital marketing. It's like super. I love the entrepreneurial journey. We hear such incredible stories of struggle and success combined that makes the world such a better place. Jared, I want to thank you so very much for your time today on behalf of our community. You're the man, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Ridgely.